Tonight in opposition of this education funding budget, and I want to talk a little bit about that. First, I really do want to thank Chairman Kelly for working so closely with me on the school aid budget. He's always been upfront and honest, and although we don't always see eye to eye on the funding priorities, I do appreciate the way in which he communicates and works with me. You know, it's very clear through the committee process and the school bus vote that we took here in the House that with Democrats and Republicans, we really do have these different visions of how we see the world and how we look at solving problems and how we define priorities and values. You know, for years, Democrats have been calling for increased funding to the foundation allowance to help, you know, our local schools. And it's good to see that we're taking a step in that direction. But I want to highlight again, I think, a very problematic part of the foundation allowance, and that is when it comes to the funding of cyber schools. There are actually other states that have different formulas for cyber schools because, as we all know, they simply do not have the same costs as our traditional brick and mortar schools, and those can be traditional brick and mortar charter schools too. I mean, there's just costs associated with buildings and transportation and others, if, for example, if they choose to pay into retirement. But cyber schools are getting a $120 increase per pupil in this budget. This current year, they got $140. What are they doing with that money? Where is that money going? Because they certainly are not putting all of that money into educating children because it doesn't cost that much. And I think we need to take a serious look in a bipartisan way at looking at what is the true cost of educating children in cyber schools and fund them appropriately if they are going to continue to be a part of our educational system in terms of how we provide education and make education relevant to students and the various ways that students learn or situations they might find themselves in order to be successful in earning their degree. I'm disappointed that we seem to have made a commitment in this chamber to provide $18 million in at-risk money for students in hold harmless and out of formula districts, because these districts are seeing increases of students that are eligible for free and reduced lunch. These are the students that need it the most. We all know it costs more to educate children who grow up and live in poverty, and I'm really disappointed that we weren't able to keep that commitment to those children. I'm disappointed that we see an increase in the amount of money going to a private company for this online algebra tool that we don't even know if it's going to be effective or not. I worked hard in the House version to put that money towards literacy coaches. We know that works. We know that's going to help students improve their reading skills. We don't know about some Florida company. But one of the biggest problems I have with this budget is this $5 million for CEOs for the takeover of our local school districts. I fought hard to get this money out of here, and I'll tell you why. The first announcement of the appointment of a CEO was to East Detroit School District, which I represent in East Point, Michigan. And just very recently, East Detroit filed a lawsuit asking for a temporary restraining order against the state and the SRO, the State School Reform Office, to stop them from appointing a CEO based on a variety of factors, including, you know, harm to the district, no due process, and there were other reasons as well. And the judge in Macomb County granted that, supported that temporary restraining order, and delivered that to the state saying, you cannot move forward on the appointment of a CEO in East Detroit until we have a hearing. That has now been moved, that case, to the Court of Claims. How are we in good conscience allocating $5 million to a program that's currently being litigated in the courts? This money should not be in this budget. We should find out what the judge ultimately says, and if it's in the state's favor, then we can always do a supplemental. We do supplemental for all kinds of programs and projects here in the state of Michigan, and this money does not belong in this budget. I think we had a real opportunity to do more for our children who need it most, and to really look at a balanced and fair funding for, the variety of ways that children get education here in the state of Michigan. It's disappointing that we see an increase in the amount of money that is going to private schools that are mandated to meet certain state requirements that businesses have to meet, but we're not reimbursing them. I believe that this is unconstitutional. When you read the section of the Constitution, it's very clear about no public money to private or denominational schools. We've diverted $500 million from school aid to help pay for higher ed. We used to have a commitment where we would use general fund dollars to go towards our higher education learning institutions and our community colleges, $237 million to higher ed and $260 million to community colleges from the school aid budget. This is dollars that I believe should be going through our K through 12 schools. We'd be doing a lot of money with that $500 million, and I urge a no vote on this budget.